Now, let me ask, it's a little challenging in this room, but I think we can do it. Is there a key question or two that emerged that you want to make sure you get clarified or asked before we move on? So if you do, stick your hand up, stand up. I'll take a couple of them, and we'll see if we can clarify this. Yes, sir.
I'm a lay leader of Duke's Chapel United Methodist Missouri, but I don't know.
Good and loud.
Huh?
Good and loud. What's your question?
We don't know who our pastor is going to be.
There you go.
And we sort of like to know,
We don't know. Good. So at the break, what you're going to do you know the name?
No.
Okay. So your pastor is going to look for you at Duke's Chapel, and if your pastor's here, why, she or he will come up and introduce themselves, and you'll get a chance to make a connection.
Thank you.
And hopefully it might be like Chuck Woolery and 2 and 2, a love connection. Somebody else, a question?
Yes, this is not a question, but only for you to respond to this statement. But I know it depends on the person and the church. For the element of trust, it takes a different time period.
Yes. Yeah. Trust may take longer where trust has been broken. Trust will take less time where trust has been solid. But if I do sort of a general sense, I'm figuring it's probably going to take, if trust is pretty high, it's probably going to take a year or two to develop trust. If trust has been pretty low or broken, it may take 3, 4, 5 years to develop that kind of trust. But you're not going to lead till you develop the trust, either relationally or by being right. Okay? We're good? All right. Yes, sir. Last one.
We've never done it that way.
Well, I would ask then the Dr. Phil question. So how's that working for you? Because I think the definition of insanity is we do the same thing the same way and expect a different result. So if your church is not booming, thriving, growing, done really great with the last 3 pastors, you might want to try something different. See, I give the Cubs manager a little credit, and that is he's got decent hitting, pretty good starting pitching. The bullpen is unbelievable. So he's tried a new fella, and it didn't work. He tried Marmol, and it absolutely hasn't worked. And so yesterday I saw in the 10th inning, wow. I feel like I'm in an NBA playoff game. All I need is the lights going, and now starting at presenter number 22. He's from Indiana. He's the terror of the town, Doug Anderson. Woo! Thank you very much. They tried somebody else. They had a lead of 1 run going into the 9th inning, and they lost it 10-7 in the 10th because they didn't have anybody close out the game. So, I give the manager credit. He says, the first 2 ain't working, I'm trying something else. So, if you've never done it before and it ain't working as well as you'd like for it to, you might try this. All right, you ready to move on? All right. One of the things you'll learn is I love sports, music, TV, and movies. And those things are liable to crop up at the least expected time. Just like that, okay? So, flip the page with me. Let's talk about focusing on the mission. And right at about close to 10 till, we're going to take our break, okay? So, let's talk about focusing on the mission. Being a great church. How many of you are striving for God to be a great church? I want to be honest with you. I'm tired of us being simply a pretty good church. Amen. I don't think pretty good's good enough. I think God's called us to be a great church. Why? Because we talk about the great commandment, we talk about the great commission, And it seems to me a great church is a church that lives out the Great Commandment and the Great Commission. And if you live out consistently the Great Commandment and the Great Commission, that's a really good way to become, or a great way, to become a great church. And that's the core of our mission statement, making disciples of Jesus Christ, Great Commission, for the transformation of the world, Great Commandment, loving others. So I want us to be a great church. God, I believe, wants each of the churches to be a great church. What does that mean? It means living consistently and well our common mission. So every time there's a change of appointment, it's a time, I believe, to do an assessment. How are we doing with the mission, making disciples of Jesus Christ for the transformation of the world? What's going well we need to strengthen and continue? What is it not so well that we need to make some significant change or adjustment? How are we going to live out the Great Commission? See, I don't think a new pastor coming is about, do we like them, him or her? Do we like them? Are we comfortable with them? Now, I'm okay with you liking your pastor and being comfortable with your pastor. I think that's a really good thing, don't you? I think it's really good if a pastor likes and is comfortable with their congregation. I don't think that's a bad thing. That's a good thing. But it's not the most important thing. It's not most important that you like or that you are comfortable. What's most important is, are you living out the mission? Because, see, sometimes if you push me as a pastor to live out the mission, it's going to cause me to be out of my comfort zone. I'm going to be uncomfortable accomplishing mission. And sometimes if I push you to be more faithful to the mission, it's going to take you out of your comfort zone. And you know, when you get out of your comfort zone, there's some part of you that says, I'm not sure I like her so much anymore. I'm not sure I like him as much as I did before. Right? Because I'm out of my comfort zone, I'm not doing what I'd prefer. But see, I don't think appointments, I don't think the church is about just meeting our level of comfort. Amen? It's about living out the mission. So I always want to have that front and center whenever we talk about a change of appointment. And so we're going to lead by this mission as lay and clergy together. That's why I'm so pleased that you're here together and you'll get a chance to connect with each other and even meet each other, which is pretty awesome. Because we've got to do this mission together. Now, if we're going to lead for the sake of the mission, to me, it means at least three things. Not just pastors, but laity as well. First, it means that each of us are going to be a champion of that mission, making disciples of Jesus Christ for the transformation of the world. We're not just going to make it sort of, well, one thing we do among a lot of things. It's not going to be peripheral. No. We're going to be a champion of the mission. We're going to make it front and center and consistent by three things that we do. First, we're going to continually clarify what our mission is. Now, Mabel at our church, do I have a Mabel in the room? I want to make sure nobody feels like I'm picking on them. Okay. Mabel and Hank. Do I got a Hank in the room? Okay. Mabel and Hank are in the church, you know, bless their hearts. You know, I discovered that from my maternal grandmother. You can say just about anything about somebody as long as you finish it with, bless their heart, you know. Lloyd, he was crazy as a bat, bless his heart. You know. Because there's no offense if you bless their heart, right? So Mabel and Hank, bless their hearts, they don't really care about the mission. They just want what they want. They want the way that it's been, and they want comfortable, and they want consistent, okay? And so for them, the mission of the church is take care of me. See, they got this kind of feeding thing in the church mixed up. When you feed in the church, you got to wear the right apparel, okay? Now, a lot of folks think the right apparel when we do feeding in the church is a bib. Because they think the church is there to make sure we get fed. Well, you know what? I came on Sunday and I just didn't get fed. Really? Now let me ask you a question. Monday through Saturday. What'd you do to feed yourself and your spiritual life to be ready for worship when you got here on Sunday? Okay? So, the appropriate garment for feeding, not a bib. We got to grow up, right, Julia? Amen. Bible says it's time to eat meat. Quit acting like babies. So, no bibs. Now, we do need to be addressed properly for feeding, and that is an apron. Because, see, when it comes to feeding, it's not primarily about you getting fed, it's about you feeding others. And not just folks in the church, but folks in the community who need the experience of the living God in their lives. So we need to have on an apron. St. Andrew United Methodist Church in West Lafayette, Indiana. Every time they take in new members, when they stand up front, they've taken their vows as they're being introduced to the congregation, their sponsor comes up and puts an apron, a St. Andrew's apron on them to remind them that when you're a member of this church, you did not come here primarily to be served. You joined primarily to serve. See? You're here to serve, make disciples of Jesus Christ for the transformation of the world. So we need to clarify over and over again. People have a different picture of what the church ought to be about. Part of leadership is to say, no, the church is primarily first and foremost about the mission. So we got to clarify that. And a great time to do that is with a change of pastor. Second, not only do we clarify that, we communicate that consistently in meetings, sermons, classes, emails, conversation, agendas. We're constantly reminding, encouraging, sharing over and over again what our mission is. Why? Because, as Andy Stanley told us in his book Visioneering, vision leaks. It leaks. People aren't disengaging from the mission because they're either stupid or willful. You know, it's not like, well, they just, you got to keep telling them over and over again because they're just stupid. No, these are bright folks. Well, then they're just willful. They get it, they just refuse to do it. No, it's really not that either. So how come they're not following through? I mean, we just shared what the mission is, and a month later it's like they never heard it. It has nothing to do with them. The reason, vision leaks. The mission leaks. See, I wish that the mission came in porcelain coffee mugs. Because if it came in a porcelain coffee mug, I could pass that out and you'd have it for a long time, wouldn't have to bother it. But there's only one problem. It doesn't come in porcelain coffee mugs. Vision only comes in water cooler cones. And when you got a water cooler cone and stand around with a while, what happens? Bingo, it leaks. And so therefore, the role of each leader is, take the bottom cone for me, will you? Just pull it right off there. Okay? So I'm just going around as a leader. Pull that one off the bottom. There you go. I know you didn't see it at first, but okay. And so part of what we're doing as leaders, pastors, leaders of groups, leaders of committees, is we're constantly replenishing the vision over and over and over again. We're communicating it over and over and over again. That's why this can't just be about the pastor. It's going to be the pastor and the pastor parish and the church council and the heads of every ministry team to continually not only clarify what the mission is, but continually communicate it. So that, third, we align everything we do with that mission. Everything. If we're going to be a great church, everything we do ought to be in some way about making disciples of Jesus Christ for the transformation of the world. So if you're doing something that is not in any particular significant way helping you make disciples of Jesus Christ for the transformation of the world, it may be time to stop doing that. Just a thought. I mean, I think there's a limit to how much additional stuff we can start doing until we start figuring out what we need to stop doing. And so part of this process with a new pastor coming in, and one of the questions I would ask as a pastor, as I met with leaders and talked with leaders is, well, tell me what you all are doing. How's that aligned with your mission? What kind of results have you gotten? What way has it been fruitful? And see, we rarely ask those questions. Well, Doug, the reason we have the annual men's manure sale for missions as I told you before, you can't make this stuff up, okay? It's really simple, because we've always done it. Now, how many folks does it bring to the kingdom? Well, really none. We do it to raise money for missions. So how much time do you do collecting this? Oh, I don't know. And we figured it out, like 300 hours. And how much money does it raise for missions because of that 300 hours? Well, we raised $600 last year. Wow. $2 an hour. Could you come to my house and clean my house, and we'll stagger it? You come over, clean my house. I'll pay you $600, for you to clean my house. Because it's ridiculous. We do stuff all the time that really doesn't accomplish the mission, but we keep doing it. So we need to be looking at, is everything aligned with the mission? And whatever is not aligned and getting significant results, we need to start having the conversation, what do we need to stop doing so we can start something else differently? Now, we're not going to start a lot of stuff as I'm building trust. I'm just trying to get a sense of how are we aligned with the mission. And that's not just me. That's every leader in the life of the church. Doug, do we have to do this? No. You don't have to do this. You don't have to do any of this. It's America. You're free to be stupid. And people exercise that God-given right every day of the week, including me. You do stupid things. I do stupid things, So no, you don't have to do any of this stuff. But if you're doing stuff that's not helping you accomplish the mission and not getting results, and you know that and you keep doing it, how bright is that? But you're free to do that if you want. 90% of United Methodist churches across the country are either plateaued or declining. 90% are plateaued or declining. Only less than 10% of United Methodist churches across the United States are growing at a rate of 5% or more a year. So we got a lot of churches that don't do anything like that. And that's the track they're on. But see, I think a change of appointment is a really good time to do some assessment and figure out where you are and what's happening and what you're doing for the mission and what do you need to stop doing so that you then plan to think about what you're going to start doing for the sake of the mission. We'll get to that. That's coming, okay? Focus on the right issues. And the right issues are, what are the opportunities in our mission field that we could take advantage of to be able to live out the mission better? Second, what are the obstacles in the life of our church or our community that if we address those and move through those, it would enable us to be more effective in making disciples of Jesus Christ for the transformation of the world? What are the obstacles? What are the opportunities that if we focused on those could help us move the mission of making disciples of Jesus Christ for the transformation of the world forward? That's the kind of conversation leaders have, not just pastors, but leaders. They're constantly asking those questions. What are the obstacles? What are the opportunities? Now, part of what we'll cover this afternoon is a process of getting acquainted that allows us, not just as pastor, but as congregation, to begin to identify what those things are so that we can begin to be aware of those, because it's really hard to address obstacles or opportunities that you aren't aware of. So we're going to get to how do we do that. I just want you to realize that's what leaders are focusing on. In other words, leaders are not focused on what have we always done so we can keep doing it, or how can we make sure everybody's happy or comfortable. Leaders are focusing on what are the opportunities, what are the obstacles as we look to the future that we could begin to address and take advantage of for the sake of the mission. See, that's what it means to be mission-centered. That's what it means to be a great church. And I think when you have a change of pastors, it is a great time to either commit or recommit to being a great church together. Amen? Yeah. So this is not just about how do we make sure everybody's comfortable and happy. Starting well means more than just getting along as lay and clergy. It means living out the mission from God well together. And one of the ways we do that is by asking good questions. And as we get to this process of getting acquainted, you're going to have a series of questions that you can use not only when you get acquainted, but the kind of questions you can continually use to have clarity about what direction do we move. See, leaders ask good questions. Bosses give right answers. Think about that with me for a minute. Now, why is it that bosses are able to give right answers? Because they're the boss. It's kind of circuitous, you know? Whatever they say, that's what we do. Why? Because they're the boss. And see, we got some folks, not just pastors, but laity, who do not function as leaders. They function as bosses. They've figured out what needs to happen. They're here to tell you what needs to be done, and your job is to go out and do it. Now, how many of you are really excited about that kind of prospect? Doing what the boss tells you to do? Not many. See? There was a day in which that was kind of the modus operandi of how you function. That's been not true for a significant period of time. Church is not looking for bosses. Church is looking for leaders. And see, what leaders do is ask good questions. Because if you ask good questions, who all has input to the answer? Everybody. And when we discern what the answer is going to be, who owns it? We all do. And what's the likelihood when we all do it that we're going to have passion, excitement, enthusiasm, and stick-to-itiveness to see it through? Much, much higher. So see, this is not about persons bossing well. It's about folks leading well. And a key way of doing that to engage people in that process is by asking good questions. So we'll model that as we get to the afternoon. Okay? Close with this. So, it's more important than feeling good. It's living as a great church. Understand that if you take seriously the notion of focusing on your mission, there are going to be people who are going to be uncomfortable. Now, you will need to listen to them, work with them, explain it to them, help them come along, care for them. But you got to choose. Are we going to focus on the mission? Or are we going to focus on everybody being happy and feeling good? Now, early on, I got to get to know you so that when I lead and we begin to focus on the mission, it's not just me, it's the whole leadership team. So I've built the trust to be able to lead. Say, remember? You got to have the change in your pocket to lead the change. So I'm not coming in making all the change, focusing on the mission. I'm asking lots of questions. What do you understand your mission to be? How do you live that out? What are the ways that you are making disciples of Jesus Christ? How are you engaged, hands-on, in transforming the world, either across the ocean or here in your own backyard and neighborhood. So I'm doing lots of question asking to help understand the current reality of what's going on. So I've got a context. So as we begin to think about how can we be more effective in the mission, I've done my homework and gotten acquainted with current reality before I help us lead into building on that or developing new reality. But for me, unapologetically for me, it's always been about the mission. My ministry, places I serve, the leaders I develop, it's always about the mission. Why? Because Jesus was always about the mission. Yeah. And I'm following him. Amen? So are you. So that's why we're focused on the mission. Now again, let me give you an opportunity. Take about 5 minutes for some conversation. How is your church currently focused on the mission? How's the church you're serving as a pastor focused on the mission? What will it mean, do you think, to focus on the mission in your new context? What things will you need to do for that to occur? Everybody clear? Interrupt in about 5 minutes, and then we will take our break.